He's probably going to get in your way, but just feel free to push in front of him.
Speaker's pointing that way, isn't it?
Will you join us today then? You joined us
No, genuine was on the gear, so nobody can get it. They stopped it.
Thank you.
You talked.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are a force for good. And we're here today in the great British city of Stirling. Because it was on the 23rd and 24th of June in 1314 that the great Robert the Bruce won the Battle of Bannockburn. So we remember him today, and we especially celebrate the fact that his very direct descendant, Queen Elizabeth, is today the Queen of Scots, the Queen of the United Kingdom, the Queen of 14 Commonwealth realms, the Queen of 14 British overseas territories, and the head of the Commonwealth of 54 nations. And I'm sure that her great ancestor, Robert the Bruce, would be very proud of that accomplishment. And so, I'm going to talk about the importance of reconciliation, the importance of looking at history and realizing that you can pick at old wounds and you can aggravate them and you can perpetuate them, or you can seek points of commonality and seek healing. And that's the position that we take. And there's going to be an SNP Green March, which is going to be shuffling by in a few minutes. And they could be accused They could be accused of trying to perpetuate old divisions. But we'll have a very reconciliatory message to them, a very healing message to them, saying, you know, let's be proud. Let's be proud that Robert the Bruce's direct descendant is today sitting on not just the throne of Scotland, but the throne of the United Kingdom. And that's why we're flying this flag, which is the royal standard of the United Kingdom as used in Scotland. And we're also flying the royal standard of Scotland, which is the lion rampant on its own. So, you know, the man we know today as Robert the Bruce was born in Tunbury in Ayrshire. His great-great-great-grandfathers, Robert the Bruce the First, arrived in Scotland 150 years before Robert the Bruce was born. And Robert the Bruce's mother was the Countess of Carrick, who belonged to Clan Macduff. And who's the Earl of Carrick today? The Earl of Carrick today is Robert the Bruce's direct descendant, Prince Charles, which is a fantastic thing when you think about it. And so he was crowned in 1306. And when Edward I died, he was replaced by Edward II. But, you know, Robert the Bruce had a lot of complaints with other clans in Scotland, and he fought the Cummins and he fought the MacDougalls, unfortunately, to their large extinction. And by March 1309, he controlled most of northern Scotland, but he did not control Stirling Castle, because Stirling Castle was still held by supporters of Edward II. In particular, the Scottish leader of Stirling Castle was Philip de Mowbray, who was descended from the Cummins. And so he was not a fan of the Bruces, and he wanted to hold on to Stirling Castle on behalf of Edward II. But he said, if this castle is not relieved from your siege by Midsummer's Day, 24th of June, then you can have Stirling Castle. But that was a red rag to Edward II. So he marched his troops, first marched them up from Berwick. And Robert the Bruce's soldiers met Edward II's forces at the Bannock Burn, at the Alt Ha Bonich, as it would be called. And the first day of conflict, 23rd of June, was marked by the famous square go between Robert the Bruce and one of Edward's leaders called Henry de Bohun, who charged at Robert with a lance. But Robert sidestepped him and parried him and drove an axe through his skull, much to his detriment. And so by the next day, the English forces had low morale. And so Robert the Bruce decided to attack early. And it was through his use of men with spears who could form themselves into hedgehog-like shiltrins, as they were called, which decimated Edward's cavalry. And Edward had to be led from the scene of battle by his own men. And that is what sorted the legitimacy, ultimately, of Robert the Bruce. Because if he had lost that battle, many Scots would have gone back and given their loyalty to Edward II instead. So Bruce can be recognised as having won that battle, which determined a distinct regal line in Scotland. That's why we're very strong monarchists, and we don't understand the Scottish nationalists who claim to be for Robert the Bruce, but don't appreciate the fact that he was a great king, and his descendants today are still with us. In fact, the present Queen descends through the Stuarts, and the Stuarts came directly from Bruce's family, because it was Bruce's daughter Marjorie who married Walter Stuart. And Walter Stuart and Marjorie had a baby called Robert Stuart. And that was the first of the Stuart line. And of course, by the time 1603 came around, the great King James VI of Scots also became the King of England in what is known as the Union of the Crowns. And to celebrate, the Scots King James VI designed this most amazing Union Jack flag, which we have. There's more. Believe me, there's more. So we're giving away a magazine at our table called Happy and Glorious, which traces that direct family tree from Bruce right down to the Queen, right down to Prince Charles, right down to Prince William and his children. And I was talking there about the Stuarts. It wasn't just the Stuarts who created the Union of the Crowns and who created the realm of Great Britain. But it was, of course, a Stuart Queen that brought us the Parliamentary Union in 1707, Queen Anne. So please do avail yourself of a free copy of our magazine, Happy and Glorious, which you can get at our table there. Which demonstrates that the Queen is a direct descendant of her ancestor, Robert le Bruce. Absolutely. So we are here to celebrate. We're here to celebrate and remember Robert, and especially to celebrate the Queen's 70th Platinum Jubilee here in the great British city of Stirling, which achieved city status in 2002 to commemorate the Queen's Golden Jubilee. Well, here we are 20 years later. And that is an amazing array there of colourful flags. So I'm sure if Robert le Bruce was here today, he would be very proud that his direct line, that his direct ancestor is Queen of Scots today and Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which Robert invaded, by the way, back in 1315, or at least his brother Edward invaded in 1315. And she's also Queen of the British Crown dependencies, including the Isle of Man, which Robert invaded in 1313. So in the end and fullness of time, his family line becomes king and queen and monarch of these areas, as well as areas that he would not even have known about or dreamt about, such as the 14 Commonwealth realms of which the Queen is the head of state, as well as the 14 British overseas territories that the Queen is head of state. And I guess Robert didn't know about the Falkland Islands back then, but if he did, he would most certainly have been crewing a ship down there to try to claim it. Well, no need, because it's British today. And he'd also be proud that the Queen is the longest reigning monarch in Britain and the second longest reigning in the history of the world. Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms and territories. Head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, long may she reign. God save the Queen. Where on earth are these marchers? They must have got lost. It's a 4.5-mile trek for them today, so we've got to take pity on them because many of them are actually quite... Hope they've been training for it anyway. Once they pass here, this is literally just the beginning of the march. They've got another 4 miles to go. Basically through housing estates that nobody will notice them apart from a few seagulls. Many unionist housing estates as well. I'm glad to hear somebody just informed me. So let's talk a little bit more about Robert the Bruce and how we see him and his legacy. We're a force for good. We're Scotland's premier pro-UK campaigning organisation, and we're here today to remember Bruce and also to celebrate the fact that his direct ancestor, direct descendant, is Queen Elizabeth, who reveres Bruce as one of her direct ancestors. I've just been informed that the separatist shuffle is coming round the corner. So that's good to know. We've remembered Robert the Bruce today and we've celebrated Queen Elizabeth. Because we see Bruce as a key figure in the evolution of Britain. A key figure in the evolution of the Union of the Crowns. A key figure ultimately in the Parliamentary Union, which came about under his direct ancestor, Queen Anne Stuart. We see him as someone who embodies the spirit of British liberty. One of the pantheons of British heroes. A heroic champion of a just cause. So that when it came time for union in the end and fullness of time, Scotland was a strong nation able to enter into union, to create the greatest country that the world has ever known, without losing any of its distinct identity, which we're flying today. In fact, you could even say he was an early British constitutionalist because he inspired the Declaration of Arbroath, which is one of the foundational documents of the British nation. Not only the Scottish nation, but the British nation at large. Well, I think there's going to be more police bicyclists than marchers on this particular event.
Excuse me. Sorry, thank you very much.
We can hear the skirl of the pipes coming round the corner. Lift it as they pass. Lift it. So John, just as at the bottom. Just as the there. Kenny, make sure John knows. Just as soon as they hit the people. We are a force for good, and we're here today in the great British city of Stirling. We're here to remember. Get it later. We're here to remember Robert the Bruce, and we're here to celebrate his direct descendant, Queen Elizabeth, in this her 70th Platinum Jubilee. Robert would be proud of what his direct descendants have done as far as uniting these islands are concerned. He would be proud that his direct descendant is today Queen of Scots. He would be proud that she is today Queen of the United Kingdom. And he would be proud that she is also the Queen of nations that he would never even have heard of. So we ask you today to join with us in celebration of Robert the Bruce. In celebration of Robert the Bruce and his ancestors today. And this flag that I'm carrying is the royal standard of the United Kingdom as flown in Scotland. Here in the great British city of Stirling, which was given status in 2002 at the time of Robert the Bruce's direct descendant, Queen Elizabeth's 50th year on the British throne. And I bet he's looking down and he's saying, you know, lads, you've done well. You've done well. You've made me proud. You've made me proud that you are the Queen, not just of Scotland, but of all the United Kingdom. And that's why we say, Here's to Elizabeth, our great British monarchy. Here's to Elizabeth, our great British monarchy. And we ask you to join us in solidarity, to celebrate that good news of British togetherness, because there's two ways of looking at things. You can aggravate and perpetuate old wounds, or you can seek healing. And we are seeking healing. We're looking to find the common points that we have together. And folks, there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friends, because life is too short. So don't throw away what you've got. And here in the United Kingdom, we have a blessed island nation. So do not throw away what you've got, but see the unity and togetherness which can be found within our United Kingdom. Bless to Elizabeth, our great British monarchy. So sail on, O ship of state. Sail on, O Union, strong and great. For humanity, with all its fears, with all its hopes for future years, is hanging breathless on thy fate. We are the men and women of a force for good, and believe us when we say we will stay the course for the Union we so love. Now, folks, we've got 4 miles to walk. That's the good news. The bad news is there's no toilets at Bannockburn. So you're going to have to, if you need to go, you're going to have to chap on a few doors along the way, and maybe you'll be lucky. But enjoy your 4-mile trek. It's a lovely day for it anyway. So have a blessed day. Is that the end of the march? It is the end of the march. We are going to play the national anthem, our special rock version of the national anthem. Hey.
Someone smuggled a Union Jack in there, I should add. At the very end of the march is the Union Jack. Just not to get it. all good.
Just film the banner and just. Well done, Alistair. That was brilliant.